It's like 12 people for 3 hours. Interesting dynamic. People I probably wouldn't, honestly, like all different walks of life that I probably wouldn't interact with in such a close way.
So it was a history class of women and family in the 20th century, but we just read different pieces that were kind of more of a microscope on certain histories of different like groups or populations. That was a little bit less of like a typical like survey history course and a little bit more focused on narrowed on certain stories.
Just hearing them talk about the way in which they first finally began to encounter women's history, feminist history, histories of people who were of non-masculine genders across the spectrum, and the way that that opened up whole new worlds of seeing for them and whole new ways of understanding, I think, is such a valuable part of this.
My first initial day in this class was surprising because it was very informal at a conference table, and as time went on I realized that this class was way better because I was able to discuss topics instead of regurgitating them. I've learned so much in this class. It's been amazing. And the fact that I got to write this op-ed with my own thought and my own choice, which I loved it.
So one of the things that I think is terrific about the Calderwood setup is that students offer so much feedback to one another, and so at first it can be quite challenging to get students to offer either critical feedback or generative feedback, especially the two of them together. Feedback that is both critical and kind and polite and generative is just really tough, but it's incredible how quickly they start to build those skills, because it is a skill. I think we often don't think of it that way. So that aspect of becoming a good editor and becoming a good, in some ways, member of a community is something that's a member of an intellectual community, perhaps, is just something that's so valuable. And in their writing, they get such focused feedback from myself and from one another that they really start to develop a sort of robust system of writing that isn't just about academia.
The structure is actually really amazing because we're having a lot more focus in smaller groups, so we can actually help each other. Like in high school with a lot of our papers, we were like help each other with our rough drafts and then we turn in a final, but once you get to college, you don't have any of that. It's just on your own, figure it out and turn it in. And we all take turns talking to each other, which is really refreshing to be able to hear different perspectives, and sometimes they counter each other and have different opinions, which is really helpful.
I think, especially taking this as one of my last classes after 4 years, it's completely different than anything I've ever taken, and not that the other types of history or other courses are unimportant, but I think it kind of put me in a new experience to force myself to kind of write creatively for the first time and really not just have those like big class discussions where someone just raises their hand and the professor, but truly like a discussion among my peers and with my instructor as well.
One of the things that we say in the Calderwood seminars is that it's not just for writing for academics, for professional historians, but writing for life, writing for the general public, writing so many times for their parents or for their siblings. And so there's something really that speaks to students about doing that kind of writing.
For example, we had an article that had a lot of adult content. We had to change it into a medium for minors, so we had to choose the age group, and I chose 67, so I took this whole entire thing and turned it into a children's book.
I think the class style is very unique and interesting. Our classes, we started from discussion of the reading, and also we had so many interesting writing assignments, like open-ended writings, and also not just in writing, but I created some videos, like historiographical videos. So it's really creative.
The way in which we can also, through courses like Calderwood's, then integrate some of the really valuable research that the CSWS is funding. For so many of these books that my students were working with in their op-eds, it was so powerful to get to turn to the acknowledgments and be like, look who's funding this research. I think Calderwoods are a nice sort of connecting tissue in a way that allows us to bring undergrads more fully into that intellectual community that is just so valuable for them.
This class is important because not just to learn about history, but knowing that history continues on. We are writing our own histories as we speak. Having more representation on topics that aren't normally talked about is very important, and this class touched upon that.
It's so uncommon for a grad student in history and maybe more generally speaking in the humanities to get any kind of experience teaching these smaller types of classes, but then also to get to see and recognize the ways in which a really well-funded classroom environment, a really supportive classroom environment, being part of an intellectual community where you're valued and then also allowed to make independent choices is something that's so valuable, that is so seldomly afforded to grad students. And so to be allowed in the CSWS to come in as a graduate student and to be treated as an equal and welcomed into this teaching environment is just something that I'm so tremendously grateful for. I think just a valuable experience.
Am I a more well-informed person? Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. And I think that that's, it'll take me down different directions that I didn't know about, I didn't know existed before.